Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. And you?
Fine, thank you. Am I mute at the moment?
No,
No, that's good.
all good. We're just waiting on Ollie,
Okay.
and then we're all set, I think. Um, oh, actually, just let me check. No, you can't share your screen. Can you now?
Hold on 5 seconds. Let me. Yes, I can
Oh,
now.
cool.
Good. Okay. Shall I share it now?
Um,
Yeah, that's
yeah, let's try it.
what can you see right now?
Oh, I can see your PowerPoint. It's not in presenter mode though.
No. Just trying to get the that's it. It's better.
Yeah, that's the one.
Good. Yeah, the controls for the Zoom were getting in the way of me getting to the slide share.
Oh, they
Yeah,
do, don't they? It's a bit of a
yeah.
silly place to have them. But I don't know that you can change it, can you?
Anyway, we're there now. So, oh, that's the end. Let's just. There we go.
Um, Let me just check if Ollie knows the time.
Hello, Kirsten.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Good. I've moved to a small office upstairs where it's less likely to be people moving behind me.
Yeah,
That's good. Well, I can see your first slide
yeah, that's good. We're all ready.
all ready and set. Um,
Yeah, we've got 14 minutes to go.
cool. There was something I was going to say. Oh, yeah. Luella said you were going to have the LinkedIn session running simultaneously.
Hopefully, yes. On my I've got a screen for my main PC and I'm on my laptop in terms of giving this talking to you now, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, that's
So important thing to say is there's no sound on my main screen, so I don't think that'll interfere.
yeah, okay. No, it's just if there is, because LinkedIn streams from Zoom, you get sometimes as much as 30 seconds delay.
Okay.
So it can be really off-putting if you're trying to speak.
Okay, I might just shut it down then. Because actually with this, I can see myself anyway up in that top right-hand corner. I
Yeah.
was saying to Luella before you joined, when we had the session this morning, different packages have different issues, and I've actually ended up giving a presentation where I could never see myself, and actually my head was like this apparently.
Yeah, I've done the same in the past. You think you're all set, and then you realise that once you share your screen, you can't actually see
Yeah.
what you look like.
Yeah. I will shut this down then. LinkedIn so that I can't see that. There we go.
Okay, that is cool.
I've switched my phone off as well, or I've switched it on to silent.
Yes, that's a very good shout. I'll do the same. I'm just going to switch off camera. I'm just going to run and grab myself a glass of water because
Okay, yeah.
it's always a good idea to have on with you.
Attendees looks like it's crept up, so that's good.
Oh, good.
I think we're on just over 50 now.
Okay, I've just, on Oliver's advice, I've just switched LinkedIn off on my main PC because he says there's a delay of about 30 seconds sometimes, and it's actually can be more distracting than not having it.
Yeah. It's fine if you can't hear it, but then when you look at it and you find you're watching yourself do what you did 30 seconds ago, gets a bit confusing.
And anyway, I can see me on this, which is so much better than whatever package it was that I gave a webinar. I was saying to Oliver that I realised I couldn't see myself at all, and it was only afterwards I realised that you could. It looked like I was sort of just resting my chin on a wall or something. Yeah.
Oh no, that is not ideal.
I'm back again
He's back.
with my glass of water.
So at about 58, I will start the proper webinar. And then at 59, I'll connect it to LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
then we should be good to just crack straight on at 12. Once I've ended the practice webinar, anything that is said after that, even if it's not streaming to LinkedIn yet, will be on the LinkedIn recording. So that's why I try to do it as soon to the time as we can, so it doesn't pick up our preps.
Yeah, good shout. All these things we learn by
Yeah.
making mistakes. Switching my laptop phone off as well for obvious reasons. Yeah, that's interesting. Kirsten, do you know a guy called Chris Jewell from Camac?
I don't.
Oh, okay. He is a logistics director that's just accepted my invite to join.
Excellent.
So that's good. It's always nice when you get some higher level people that want to hear what you've got to say.
It is, it is. So you're in touch with Alison Hobson now at Scala.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
FMCG best practice.
That's right. I think we've got something in the diary now. Just to by way of an introduction. I forget when it is exactly.
I think, oh, okay, but in order to have a chat with her. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. Thanks for that introduction.
I think that's exactly, it's a shame it's so far off because it's not until January, is it, that she's talking about the next one?
Yeah, but that's okay. As in, it's good to get things lined up in the diary.
Oops.
Right, I'm going to start the session. We're not live yet though, but just, yeah, all the best.
Thanks. Good afternoon all, or good morning. Those who are just joining, I think Luella's just connecting up the LinkedIn live stream. So whilst a few folks are joining, we'll kick off in the next minute or so. Well, it looks like that's that's all connected now. And it's, according to my clock here, it's bang on 12 o'clock. So thanks for joining our webinar. This is Lindum Packaging's September webinar. Those of you who follow us will know that we do this every month, various different topics all around logistics and pallet stability and packaging. And I'm very excited about today's webinar because we've got a guest speaker on, Kirsten Tisdale, who's with me on the call. She has many years' experience in logistics, and she's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. And I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Kirsten, that you've worked with many of the large retail clients?
I have.
Some of which are, I think, are represented on this call. So thank you for joining. And those of you who either know me or follow the work that Lindum does on pallet stability and improving pallet stability to prevent palletized loads getting damaged in transit, you'll know how passionate we are about actually preventing these MIT issues or pallet stability issues. And Kirsten has been helping us put some of that into context by sharing some of the broader trends that are going on in logistics and how that impacts on palletized transport and palletized goods. So she's got some very, very interesting insights to share with us this afternoon. So Kirsten, over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Oliver. So good afternoon, and thank you to Lindum Packaging for hosting this session. As Oliver said, I'm Kirsten Tisdale. I'm a logistics consultant, and Arisia Limited up in the top left-hand corner is my company. The boxes down below tell you a little bit about me. My degree was in mathematics. I love graphs, as you'll see from the rest of my presentation. My entire career has been in logistics. For those that don't know me, I worked for 3PLs on both the operations and the business development side. I worked for Marks and Spencer for 12 years in its logistics department. And then I've been running my own consultancy business for the last 20 or so years with big corporate clients. The map, I specialize in geographic analysis, network analysis, and also data analysis. I'm going to put up a little agenda. I've got one slide on each of these trends, and I'll carry straight on. So I was pleased to see last night when the headline came up on the BBC that the OECD actually agrees with me, because I had already put this slide together, and that is that demand is reducing at the moment. The OECD said that economic activity had already weakened, and you're seeing here that Supply Management did a piece early in September on the PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index. Manufacturing output sees record rate of contraction. Over on the top right-hand corner, we've got the Lodestar talking about new build mega ships going straight to anchor. The MSC Mikal has had its maiden voyage cancelled because they didn't want to see it arriving in Rotterdam half full. And then down the bottom, you can see the Grocery Gazette talking about retail, specifically food here, but not just value being affected by inflation, but volumes actually actively down. And all of that obviously then feeds into logistics. This is a complicated graph, so I'll spend a little time on it. Warehousing, and this is specifically non-food, and there's nothing to do with warehousing up on that graph at the moment. What the graph is showing is retail sales in pound notes, in pound billions per annum as a moving average. And what the moving average does is effectively gets rid of the seasonality, so you can see the overall pattern. So the dark purple, so it goes from December 2009 through to now in terms of the colour, and then you'll see in a moment why I've got it going through to December 2026. The dark purple is retail sales that are out of stores. The mid purple is what I've called multi-channel. So it's people like Next, John Lewis, Marks and Spencer, who both sell in store, the deep purple, but also do online, the mid purple. And then the very light coloured lilac is pure play. It will include a little bit of food, you can't strip that out, but about 50% of that light coloured bit is Amazon. What you're seeing there is the general trend up till COVID started. Then you're seeing that great big sort of bite out of the top of the graph, which is when we had lockdowns and immediately afterwards. And at the same time as the bite out of the top of the graph, you're seeing the two elements of online pick up and increase, but then you're seeing them decrease, and you'll see why that's important in a moment. So in 2016, Prologis, who many people in logistics will be aware of, they run big logistics parks. They came up with a formula that said that online sales needed about 3 times the fulfillment space compared with traditional retailers. And what I did it last year for Tomorrow's Warehouse conference, and I've updated it for this session now, is to apply that rule to these figures that we're seeing. Whereas the purple bits are all pound notes, I've adjusted this for inflation in terms of, obviously in logistics, we're much more interested in volume rather than value, and the mix is changing. And what, because you will have heard in the BBC that people are returning to the high street in a way that perhaps the fulfillment, the commerce fulfillment people didn't envisage. With respect to the warehousing, I've put in a dotted line which shows what the pre-COVID trend was. I've just penciled that in. That's not a scientific trend, but I did that sort of reflecting what had been happening from 2016 through to 2019. You can see a very little dip in that that requirement for warehousing as COVID just launched. This is specifically for retail, for non-food, so it's not manufacturing and it's not food logistics. You then see that huge increase, which is due to the change of mix, us all buying stuff online rather than in store, and then see it dip below the line now, and we'll return to that later. But the key thing that, I was really interested to see in recent news in Logistics Matters, just Amazon are now looking for a tenant for 750,000 square foot warehouse. Only 2 years ago, they signed up for a 15-year lease, and now they find they don't need it, which exactly reflects what you're seeing on that graph. On the transport side, mixed outlook. This graph is a very long trend. It starts back in 1994, which is when the Department for Transport data starts, and goes right through to Q2 of this year. It's only published occasionally, so We don't have the current quarter yet. So the thing that interests me here is the long-term trend where HGV miles hardly change at all. Yes, they're waggling up and down with seasonality, as is the light commercial vehicles. So it's the heavy goods vehicles at the bottom in blue and the light commercial vehicles in yellow at the top. And this is showing billions of miles per quarter that these types of vehicles are running. Now, van miles is not just about logistics. It's not just about deliveries. In fact, deliveries only account for about 24% of van miles, and trades, people using their vans as essentially mobile toolboxes, is much more significant. But we know that logistics sort of moves in line with this graph. Going back to the HGVs, I mean, we know there have been various changes in vehicle sizes, both from a weight point of view and also much more use of double deckers. But this graph suggests to me that HGV miles are constrained by the number of vehicles, which in turn is probably constrained by the number of truck drivers, HGV drivers. I'm going to move on to my next slide, which is about staffing issues. Now, you'll have seen, again, on the BBC and other mainstream media, that the latest UK unemployment rate is beginning to creep up, 4.3% compared to 3.6% a year ago. And this graph, which I have copied from the Adzuna website, the job ads site, shows the annual change in hiring activity, which over on the right-hand side, sorry, left-hand side, you can see that there are sectors where they're busy recruiting and recruiting more than last year, so teachers. But we're well over on the right-hand side. I've indicated that with an arrow. We're one of the 5 sectors that are doing much less activity in hiring compared to last year. And the stats that are just below, which are UK-wide, these are not specifically logistics. The days to fill vacancies in April was down compared to a year ago. Plainly, that's good news if you're advertising for staff. And the job seekers per vacancy were up in July compared to a year ago. Plainly, again, good news if you're looking for staff. And then one of the things that I thought was most interesting so I've put a link here to Adzuna's job market report, and they update that every month. One of the things I thought was most interesting this month was that the most popular roles were warehouse workers and lorry drivers, which obviously is partly driven by the fact that one advert will be generating, people would be looking for one advert to generate multiple vacancies and multiple applications, but equally there are other, like with teachers, nurses, etc. There will be other jobs like that. So I thought very interesting that warehouse workers and lorry driver adverts are the thing that is the most interesting to people that are looking for work at the moment. Another complicated graph, don't worry about it, I will talk it through. This is about inflation, so it's not about prices, it's about the rate of change of prices. And when you see reducing inflation, that doesn't mean necessarily that prices are going down. It's only when you end up below the zero line that you are actually seeing deflation and you are seeing prices go down. The grey line is diesel pump prices, and we're all aware of what happened to those last year through our own personal life, even if we're not involved in logistics on a day-to-day basis. And diesel is in the interesting situation at the moment of having prices increase, but it's still being deflationary compared to last year because prices were so high at the same time last year. The green lines represent manufacturing. The dotted line is input. So the commodities that manufacturers are buying, the shipping costs, the energy that they need to manufacture, and then the solid green line is output, so the products that they're sending to stores, whether they're Heinz beans, whether they're clothes, whether they're whatever. And you can see that the green lines are the other ones that have actually gone down below the zero line, although they are just beginning to lift again. The blue lines are us. The blue lines are logistics. The dotted one is warehousing, and the dark one, the solid one, is road freight. And you can see that they increased, and the peak, unsurprisingly, was at the same point as diesel and energy, and then have started reducing. The inflation's been reducing. Consumer price inflation, I actually updated this morning so that we could actually see exactly where it was. That's the pink one. And we're all aware from our personal lives that inflation increased enormously. It's now decreasing, but that doesn't mean the prices that we're paying are decreasing. It just means that the rate of increase is slowing. And then we've got the yellow one, which looks quite innocuous, but that's the one the Bank of England are concerned about. That's services at an aggregate level. So that includes all sorts of things. It includes logistics, but it also includes publication, publishing. It includes legal services. It includes things like sewage services. It's a real real bucket of different things. But it's unlike manufacturing, where you've got the cost of your commodities and things like this. Services is largely driven by wages, and this is the one that the Bank of England worries about, because if you get into a wage price spiral, it's very difficult to get rid of inflation. Just going back to the pink one here, the Bank of England essentially has one KPI, and that one KPI is to bring this down to 2%, which is sort of more down here on the graph. So we can see they're miles from their KPI at the moment. And there's another Bank of England interest rate sort of meeting tomorrow, and it will be interesting to see what they do. I think I've just got some little reminders to myself to make sure I've told you all these things. As I say, the Bank of England's KPI is 2%. PPI is these manufacturing ones, that's like the CPI but for manufacturing. When you get inflation in commodities, the Bank of England doesn't worry about it. So when we see this diesel going right up in terms of inflation, Bank of England is not so concerned about that. And the reason for that is that if I buy a bag of grain at £10 this year, or last year, and this year it costs me £11, that's a 10% inflation. But if next year it still costs £11, that's no inflation on that second year. It's still costing you and I more money, but the Bank of England isn't worried about it because it's dropped out of inflation. Whereas, as we I just talked through, on services, the impact is much stickier, and that's what they're worried about. So changing all the change that's going on at the moment and has done over the past few years, but one of the things that changing demand, changing prices offers is opportunities. And so just picking up on each of the areas that I was talking about, plainly, changing demand gives the opportunity for good deals. If you've got spare space in your warehouse, it could be as a retailer that you can afford to buy something and knock your supplier down on price. So it's worth thinking about what's available in terms of deals, what you can take advantage of. In terms of warehousing space, as we saw, much less pressure from e-commerce now. and reading Logistics Manager, exactly what you might think has happened, and that is that more warehousing space is now being taken up by manufacturers. And that's because, you know, the overheat on the e-commerce side has gone, and it's actually giving manufacturers an opportunity to take up warehousing space where they just weren't in the running for it before. Transport services, I think it's fair to say that the advantage there is with the buyer. I think, you know, haulage prices now on the spot market have been in deflation for about 16 months. And so I'm sorry if you're a haulier, but I think the advantage here is to the manufacturer and retailer, the opportunity. Plainly, what we've seen on staffing is that there's opportunity for getting quality staff in now, possibly more so than before, because the staffing market is loosening, the employment market is loosening. But my advice would be not to leave recruiting to peak till the last minute, because it does look as if people have relaxed a little bit at the moment. Opportunities to do things differently. So when there's a lot of change, it gives you opportunity to perhaps discuss with your client things that you would like to propose, but in the past they've not been open to them. And it also gives opportunity to think differently. So it gives opportunity for acquisitions. If you're in a strong position financially, plainly you've got to, you know, it's a buyer beware situation, but it may well be worth looking at what you can do to grow by acquisition as well as organically. And it gives the opportunity to launch new services. Pretty much simultaneously with that news that Amazon were looking for someone to lease the Peterborough, that huge Peterborough warehouse, we've also seen the news that they are launching their service for SMEs, their end-to-end logistics service. So they've sort of pivoted from this bit of, you know, this bit isn't successful, but we're going to pivot over to this bit. And the important thing, particularly when there's lots of change happening, is to stay ahead of the competition. So in terms of doing things differently, I'd like to just talk to you about the pallet stability report that I've written. It looks at what can be achieved by taking a scientific approach to pallet stability, which is exactly what Lindum do. They have a mobile test lab that is installed in a truck that can come to your own facility and test pallets. And by that I mean that they can accelerate those pallets, decelerate them, as if they're in a truck in an emergency stop type situation. And it's an area that can tick lots of boxes in terms of results. It can reduce your costs, it can improve your customer service by improving availability of your product, helps with respect to health and safety. Plainly, you're not delivering you're not delivering trucks to warehouses with unsafe pallets on board, and it can help with your environmental KPIs. What I've done here is I just pulled out some cost savings. These are the direct cost savings, and the cost benefit analysis is referred to in the report. You can see that they are huge volumes of pallets. It's two separate case studies, two huge volumes of pallets in both cases. Cost savings in both cases by changing what you're doing. More stable pallets as a bonus. The balance is different in the two because the objectives were different in the two. And then on that second one at the bottom, 1/3 of a ton of plastic saved every single day by one of these clients. That's just the direct cost savings. There are also other quantifiable cost savings. and I've got a sheet of a whole list of things. It's an A4 sheet of other areas where you can look to see what you're saving, the reduced damage that you've got, the trailers that you're not got tied up anymore by waiting for damaged pallets to be unloaded from them, not paying KPI based fines, all of that sort of thing. So please do get in touch if you're interested in that report, either with Oliver or directly to me. And thank you. So I think I've left a little bit of time for questions, Oliver. So I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Kirsten. That was fascinating. A number of different insights there that I picked up that I perhaps haven't thought about too much before, particularly the different levels of inflation in the different parts of the economy. I don't know if I've seen it broken down quite like that before, so that's really, really interesting. One thing you touched on was the miles traveled, or the billions of miles traveled by small vans and or light vehicles and HGVs. I wondered if you had any insight, Kirsten, as to how the percentage of HGV miles that are actually utilized, because we often see part loads and trucks not 100% utilized. Would you have any thoughts or insights on that?
I think the industry figure is that about a third of trucks are running empty, but that is actually very difficult to do something about, because you know, if you're, I don't know, collecting sugar beet from a farm, what can you take back as a return load? If you're collecting milk in a tanker, what can you can't take anything back as a return load. And then obviously you've got the geography of where stuff's coming from, where it's going to. There's definitely improvements that one can make, but it's you're not going to get rid of all that empty mileage, unfortunately.
No, that's interesting. I didn't know that either. So approximately a third is the industry number. Okay. I was also looking at your little map that you've got on the screen there, with the heat map of mileage. I know you do a huge amount of work on mapping of different logistics models. You've probably got a expert opinion, Kirsten, on where the next UK motorway should be built.
Oh, difficult. Well, I mean, the you know, it's controversial at the moment what's intended to be done at Stonehenge, isn't it? The
Yes.
UNESCO have just stepped in and said that they may actually stop Stonehenge being a site of you know, of worldwide interest if the tunnel goes ahead. But from a personal point of view, if I'm driving down to Devon, I always like to see Stonehenge, so it'd be a great disappointment to me if there was a tunnel. But I think that's probably an area where there'll at some point be a development.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I'm just looking to see if there's any questions come in from any of the audience. I'm not seeing any additional ones. So one other question that I had is, for years and years, the majority of goods has been transported on pallets when it comes to road transport. Have you ever come across a viable alternative to palletized transport?
I guess that when you're dealing with smaller amounts of goods, then tote trays, whatever you want to call them, the sort of plastic trays that supermarkets have some of their goods in, but even those are generally transported in larger quantities on pallets. Pallets are great. Pallets are a great thing, and plainly it's an area of interest to Lindham.
Yeah, very much so. Obviously, we see containerized transport as often loose loaded.
Yeah,
but obviously that doesn't work on road transport. So absolutely fascinating. I don't have any more questions myself. If anyone does have any questions for Kirsten, and they think about them afterwards, you can reach out to me. We're in contact quite often. And likewise, if anyone would like to see a copy of the report on pallet stability that Kirsten's pulled together, she's put a lot of work into that. It's got a lot of detail in, and I think it's a fascinating read for anybody in the logistics sector. So please reach out to me, or indeed to Kirsten directly, and we'll be happy to provide you a copy of that. So I think that really wraps us up, unless you've got any further closing words for us, Kirsten.
I don't. I mean, I think I do actually. You were saying about containerized transport not being palletized. Plainly, there's a real balance between the costs of loading a container and the distance it's going to travel and what it's going to cost you. Yeah, what it costs you to load and unload versus what the overall journey is costing. And plainly, when you're talking much shorter journeys in the UK, then I think things are always going to be palletized. Yeah,
well, that's interesting. Okay, that's excellent. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. I really enjoyed your presentation, and I've no doubt we'll be in touch very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to our audience for tuning in. All right. Have a great afternoon. Thanks all. Goodbye.